Caniggia is onside, and he's made it two!
They called him El Hijo del Viento, the son of the wind. A blur of blonde hair and reckless brilliance, Claudio Caniggia was more than just Argentina's secret weapon in the '90 World Cup. He was the man who ran like a spirit beside Diego Maradona. But like a meteor, he burned bright and vanished just as quickly. Not because he wasn't good enough, not because he was injured, but because the very thing that made him electric also made him volatile. There's a photo, two silhouettes walking off the pitch, arms around each other. One is Maradona, the god. The other, Caniggia, the wild angel who once saved Argentina with a single run. Together, they were poetry and chaos. But while the world forgave Maradona's demons, Caniggia was never granted that same grace. He partied just as hard, fell just as deep, but when he disappeared, few came looking. This is not just a story about wasted talent. It's about friendship that defied logic, about a man who outran defenders but couldn't outrun himself. Cocaine, bands, scandalous love affairs, mafia connections. They say Caniggia had it all and lost it all without regret. Or maybe he never wanted to be found in the first place. Why did a player of such undeniable flair vanish from football's main stage? Why did Argentina's fastest man become a footnote in his own era? This is the story of Claudio Caniggia, not as the world remembers him, but as he really was. Beautiful, broken, and unforgettable. In the golden haze of late 1980s Argentine football, a new breed of players emerged, sons of a country torn between dictatorship and democracy, chaos and catharsis. Claudio Caniggia was the perfect embodiment of that paradox. Elegant and explosive, rebellious yet divine on the pitch. Born in 1967 in Henderson, Buenos Aires, Caniggia wasn't molded in a football academy. He was sharpened in the streets, where flair, fearlessness, and instinct mattered more than tactics. While his contemporaries like Gabriel Batistuta were sculpted center forwards, Caniggia was something different. He was wild air, a winger who ran like he had no tomorrow, always looking to beat the odds, and his man. By the late 80s, Argentina was still high on the fumes of their 1986 World Cup triumph. Maradona was king, and the pressure to find his next great ally was mounting. It wasn't long before Caniggia, by then playing in Italy for Atalanta, caught the national team's eye. His electric runs, his impossible acceleration, and his unteachable unpredictability made him a perfect foil for Maradona's gravity. Their bond wasn't just tactical, it was spiritual. Caniggia was the only player allowed into Maradona's inner sanctum. They shared hotel rooms, whispered secrets, and partied like rock stars. In a team full of soldiers, Caniggia was the only one Diego called hermano, brother. The world first truly witnessed this fusion at Italia '90. Maradona's genius may have dragged Argentina to the semifinals, but it was Caniggia who delivered the killing blows. His solo goal against Brazil, slaloming between defenders, toe-poking past Taffarel, is still whispered about in Buenos Aires as if it were divine intervention. And then came Italy. In a cauldron of hate in Naples, Caniggia's diving header eliminated the hosts, the perfect act of betrayal in a World Cup of shadows. But that's when the cracks began to show. Banned from the final for a second yellow card, the most infamous of tactical fouls, Caniggia could only watch as Argentina lost the title. Some say the team lost its soul without him. Some say that was the beginning of his end. In the years that followed, he bounced between clubs and continents, Italy, Portugal, Scotland, even Qatar. Always with flashes of brilliance, always haunted by inconsistency. But it wasn't just football that shaped Caniggia's story. Off the field, his life was spinning faster than his boots could carry. He married a scandalous figure from Argentine tabloids. He tested positive for cocaine in 1993. He was banned for 13 months, effectively killing his European momentum. When he returned, it wasn't to redemption. It was to more chaos. Yet somehow, through it all, Maradona never left his side. It's rare in football or life to find such an unwavering bond. When Maradona was exiled in 1994, it was Caniggia who embraced him. When Caniggia faded, it was Maradona who demanded his recall to the 2002 World Cup squad, even at 35. But by then, the fire was already ashes. Caniggia was a man caught between decades, too rock star for the 80s, too fragile for the modern game. His peak was brief, incandescent. His fall was inevitable. And yet, we still remember him. The man who ran like a ghost, kissed Maradona after goals, and danced with the devil without blinking. Because maybe, just maybe, he was the last player who didn't care about legacy, only about the moment. Claudio Caniggia's ascent was never steady. It was a series of violent bursts, like lightning strikes. By the time he joined Atalanta in 1989, he was already carving his name into Europe's consciousness. He wasn't a player you admired from afar. He was a player you felt. The hair, the fury, the audacity. He ran with the rage of a man escaping something unseen. Then came the summer of 1990, and with it, immortality. In the round of 16 at the World Cup, Argentina faced Brazil, a superpower, a rival, a nemesis. The entire match, Brazil battered them. But in the 80th minute, Maradona danced through the midfield, somehow evading tackles on a torn ankle, and slipped the ball to Caniggia. One-on-one with Taffarel, Caniggia didn't panic. He didn't even slow down. One shimmy, one touch, goal. That run changed everything. He became Argentina's new cult hero, not just because he scored, but how he scored. There was a wild poetry to it, a flair you couldn't teach. And then, as if scripted by the football gods, he did it again in the semifinal against Italy. In front of a furious Roman crowd, Caniggia silenced 60,000 Italians with a fearless header. Argentina was going to the final, and Caniggia was going with them, or so they thought. Then came the yellow card. A silly, forgettable foul, but a second booking, suspended for the final. Argentina lost to West Germany in a soulless, gritty match. The magic was gone, and so it seemed was Caniggia's fate. After 1990, the fall began. Despite his stardom, he struggled to find stability. Transfers to Roma and Benfica fizzled out. His explosive pace remained, but his discipline did not. And behind the scenes, a darker current was pulling him under. In 1993, the truth exploded. Caniggia tested positive for cocaine. The ban was swift. 13 months, not only time lost, but time that defined him. When he returned, he was different. Not slower, just more distant. Like a man playing because he had to, not because he still loved it. He fled Europe, first to Boca Juniors, then to Dundee in Scotland, of all places. Then Rangers, then Qatar. The glamour was gone. The football, still dazzling at times, was now a sideshow to the chaos of his personal life. There were tabloid headlines, reports of mafia ties, rumors of domestic abuse. His marriage to Mariana Nanis, a flamboyant media star, became a toxic circus played out on Argentine television. Their public fights, arrests, even his brief hospitalization for depression in 1996, all fed into a character now seen as more infamous than famous. And yet, in 2002, nearly a decade after his cocaine ban, Marcelo Bielsa, under pressure from Maradona and public nostalgia, recalled Caniggia to the World Cup squad. He was 35. Most assumed it was a ceremonial call, but in Argentina's final group game, Caniggia made history in his own twisted way. He became the first player to ever be red-carded without stepping onto the pitch. He cursed at the referee from the bench and was sent off. It was poetic. Tragic. Perfectly Caniggia, a career that began with promise, that peaked with unforgettable goals, ended in a shout from the sidelines. No testimonial match, no last homecoming, just silence. The boy who ran like the wind was gone. There's a moment in Claudio Caniggia's life that no camera caught, no commentator described. A moment behind closed doors after the applause had faded when the man once called El Hijo del Vio sat in silence, unsure if he was still running or simply running away. Because behind the flashbulbs and flowing hair was a truth no one wanted to face. Claudio Caniggia never wanted to be a legend. He wanted to live. And in choosing life, wild, chaotic, unscripted life, he sacrificed everything else. The cocaine wasn't an accident. It was an escape. In interviews, Caniggia has often brushed it off, saying he wasn't addicted, that it was just one stupid moment. But those close to him knew different. They knew about the wild nights in Buenos Aires, the parties in Rome, the sleepless mornings in Porto. They knew about the way he disappeared from training, the rage outbursts, the strange isolation that followed every match. And then there was Mariana. His marriage to Mariana Nanis was legendary. Not for love, but for spectacle. She was a blonde bombshell who lived for the spotlight. He was a fading star who increasingly wanted out. They fought publicly, brutally. At one point, he left her and their children, retreating to Miami for what he called peace. She accused him of abandonment, He accused her of manipulation. Their war played out on Argentine reality TV, a grotesque shadow of the boy who once kissed Maradona after scoring. In 1996, the public got a glimpse of just how dark things had become. Caniggia was hospitalized under psychiatric observation. The official statement spoke of exhaustion, but rumors swirled of depression, of mental breakdown, of addiction relapse. He reemerged days later, smiling weakly, but the damage was done. Still, the public couldn't let go. Maybe because he was beautiful, maybe because he was broken, or maybe because he was the last living link to the romantic idea of football, raw, instinctive, rebellious. He was a player who didn't give interviews, who didn't chase brand deals, who wore his socks low, his hair long, and played as if the clock wasn't real. But that same freedom made him a target. The AFA, Argentine Football Association, never fully embraced him. Coaches distrusted his discipline. Clubs feared his volatility. Even Maradona, his fiercest supporter, once admitted Claudio needed someone to save him, but he didn't want to be saved. Perhaps the darkest truth is that Caniggia didn't fall. He chose the fall. He saw the golden path and walked the other way. For him, glory was suffocating. Fame was a cage. Football was only fun when it felt like rebellion. After retiring, he didn't join the pundit circus. He didn't coach, didn't write books, didn't campaign for respect. He vanished. Occasionally spotted at clubs or appearing in cryptic interviews, but never fully returning. In 2021, when his son appeared on a reality show, Claudio refused to comment. "That's not my world anymore," he said. He lives now between Marbella and Miami, surfing the edges of obscurity. Older, quieter, but never apologetic. Caniggia's story isn't a tragedy because he failed. It's a tragedy because he refused to succeed on anyone else's terms. He lived like a ghost, haunted stadiums for a few glorious years, and then disappeared. Not as a victim, but as a man who made his own hell and called it freedom. And maybe, just maybe, that's why we still whisper his name. Because in a sport obsessed with control, Claudio Caniggia was the last man who ran free. There's something uncomfortable, almost confrontational, about Claudio Caniggia's story, because it refuses to fit into the boxes we like to place our legends in. He wasn't the loyal one, the tragic one, or even the misunderstood genius seeking redemption. He was the wild one. And sometimes, wild things don't want to be tamed. As a channel that dives into football's forgotten truths, we ask, what makes a legend? Is it longevity, trophies, stats? Or is it something else? Something less measurable, but more profound. By traditional metrics, Caniggia doesn't rank among the all-time greats. He has no Ballon d'Ors, no Champions League medals. His name rarely makes it into top 10 debates. But ask any Argentine from the 90s who made them feel something, and Caniggia's name will rise like smoke through memory. That's the thing about Claudio. You didn't just watch him play. You felt him tear through the screen. And yet, we can't ignore the other side. He did test positive for cocaine. He was banned. He did vanish during what should have been his prime. He did shout his way into a red card without playing a single minute at a World Cup. These aren't mythic embellishments, they're real, and they hurt his career more than any defender ever did. So was he a wasted genius? Or a man simply not built for the rigid demands of greatness? Maybe both. Caniggia didn't fall into a system and thrive. He danced on its edges, kissed the line between brilliance and disaster, and dared it to push back. He was the kind of player who would sprint past 3 defenders, score a goal Maradona would applaud, and then vanish for days. He didn't care for legacy. He cared for moments. And that's what makes him so fascinating, because in today's era of calculated PR and brand-polished athletes, Caniggia feels like a relic. Not from the past, but from another dimension. A version of football that was untamed, romantic, dangerous. His friendship with Maradona, too, defies logic. The world forgave Diego's sins because of his divine gifts. But Caniggia, who walked the same fire, never received the same mercy. He was seen as the sidekick, the accomplice, the party boy. And yet, in those rare moments when Diego needed him, 1990, 1994, even off the pitch, Caniggia was there. So, we ask you, did we lose Claudio Caniggia too soon? Or did he walk away because we never really saw him to begin with? Was he a flawed genius crushed by a brutal system? Or a free soul who didn't want our forgiveness, only our silence? There are no easy answers, only echoes of goals, of scandal, of friendship, of fire. And in those echoes, El Hijo del Viento still runs. There's a clip, grainy, sun-streaked, of Claudio Caniggia sprinting down the wing in Italia 90. His hair streams behind him like a comet, defenders falling away, the crowd rising in a slow, swelling roar. For a few seconds, it feels like time bends to his rhythm. And then he's gone, past the keeper, arms raised, eyes burning with something between joy and defiance. That moment never left us. Claudio Caniggia may have faded from football's grand halls of fame, but he remains etched in a different kind of immortality, the kind reserved for spirits too untamed to be caged by numbers, trophies, or timelines. In the streets of Buenos Aires, his name is still spoken with a smirk, a sigh, a sense of what if. Not regret, just wonder. Because Caniggia never pretended to be perfect. He didn't care for polished speeches or choreographed farewells. He loved chaos. He was chaos. And in that, he became timeless. Today, his legacy lives not in silverware, but in feeling. In that rush of blood when a winger dares to sprint. In the irrational love fans have for flawed icons. In the sacred space he shared with Diego. A bond forged not in tactics, but in rebellion. He may have disappeared from football's center stage, but Caniggia left behind something more rare. Myth. The kind you pass down not in stats, but in stories. The kind that begins with, "There once was a man who ran like the wind and refused to stop for anyone." Some stories were never meant to be told, but now, you know.